The contest in Washington is about something that's very abstract, the debt limit, the debt ceiling, the charge card. But it's a way of the two parties and the significant players in the two parties who are not presidential candidates, well, one of them is, but he is the president, at this point, to resolve a crisis that's been building for 2.5 years. The two visions of the two parties. One, the Keynesian, the neo-Keynesian, spend and stimulate. The other one, cut and shrink. I generalize, forgive me. Right now, my information is that there is no solution. That John Boehner is going into conversation with the president and the vice president over an issue that is intractable. And both sides have gained from its intractability, but we're told we're facing a deadline. I don't believe it. I don't believe in deadlines. I don't believe in rushing. But anyway, they mention August 2nd. I begin with you, John. At this point, do you see a formula that brings a resolution of this contest in Washington between the Speaker and the President?
There's a clear formula in terms of what needs to be done to solve this problem. Whether the Republicans and the Democrats will actually have the political will to do it, that's the question. Right now, there is no path to achieving that formula, which is everybody gives a little bit, the debt ceiling gets raised, and there are steps to reduce the long-term costs.
All right, I can hear the Republicans loading their weapons, and I suppose the Democrats are getting out the baseball bats and the unions are charging to the White House. But in any event, Margaret, I'm told by a very trusted Republican member of the House that there are not 218 votes in the Republican House for any debt limit deal that includes taxes. Nothing. It doesn't happen. That's what I'm told. I'm also told reliably from the Democratic side that Mrs. Pelosi is adamant that there will be no deal unless there is revenue, that's taxes, that make up for the cuts to her significant programs. That sounds like no solution, Margaret. What's it sound like to you?
I don't know. I would probably use a term that President Obama used when he first came to Washington, which is, I won. He won the election, so he got to have it his way. Well, guess what, Nancy Pelosi? John Boehner won.
Right.
So they have the leverage here. And I'm with Paul Ryan. The debt and the deficit are a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We've got a long-term outlook that absolutely can be changed by making responsible reforms to entitlements, to spending now that will dramatically improve the forecast of both the economy and, frankly, save entitlement reforms for the next generation.
That is the Republican case. However, you have to take into account that I have not heard any weakness from the Democrats with regard to this for many weeks. And Mr. Drucker, the Senate has some knowledge of the vice president. He is the president of the Senate, after all. And I was told very clearly that the pounding of the table by the vice president, and the reason Eric Cantor left the room, although it was a little stagey, was because the vice president will not entertain a solution that does not include revenues. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think, though, it's important to understand that negotiations on Capitol Hill have a certain kind of a rhythm. And at first things are going well, and then it looks like they've died and they're never going to pick up again. And then lo and behold, at the 11th hour, they somehow figure it out. Now, I think that we need to note a couple of things. First of all, you don't need Democratic votes in the House for anything. There are plenty of Republicans, and if the president and Mr. Boehner and Mr. McConnell and Mr. Reid can come to a deal, Nancy Pelosi and her Democrats are irrelevant. So, and I think you'll enjoy this, John, all the action is going to shift back to the Senate, because that's where even a backbencher can bring everything to a halt and muck everything up. And I think what it's going to come down to is, how do you address revenue? Now, there's no way that any Republican will accept the kind of tax increases that we generally think of when we use the term. But if you saw with the ethanol vote, how the ethanol subsidy was voted down by a wide margin, there may be a way to deal with some of the industry, either tax breaks or subsidies, whatever you want to call them, get that into the mix, and that might be a way to do the deal. But it's also going to be up to Mr. Obama to tell Senate Democrats, this is what we're doing, and you're just going to like it. And if he doesn't go there, and if he chooses to stand on tax increases for the millionaires and billionaires, so-called, then that's a different story. And then this thing just might go to loggerheads, and we'll get nowhere. We'll go past August 2nd, and we'll just be spinning our wheels.
How does that not happen, David? I mean, you have on the maybe the long ball scenario that is the Wyden Coates tax reform bill. Maybe in these negotiations, look, let's raise the debt ceiling, let's cut X trillion, and have close some loopholes, especially with regards to corporations and subsidies. How is that not the obvious solution? What's the argument for not doing that? I mean, I think the far left trying to drag Obama to take on the top rate here is such a political loser on the surface. It's not even worth talking about. How is this a tax reform compromise to raise revenue by closing loopholes not the obvious solution to the way out of this deadlock?
Well, to me, it may be the obvious solution because that's the only place I can really see compromise actually happening. But nobody gives away their position early in the game. We still got over a month to go.
That's exactly right.
All right, I want to try this again because I'd like to know what the advantage is for either side to give in. Mr. Avlon, I begin with you. We're running a presidential contest here. Mrs. Pelosi is genuinely believing that she's in a position to regain the House or at least take a sizable chunk out of Mr. Boehner's majority. Yep. In the Senate, I don't think it's fantasy to say that a couple of seats either way, given the right rhetoric, you can hold the Senate for the Democrats. So why should the vice president compromise with the Tea Party?
Look, if Nancy Pelosi's big idea is Metascare for allegedly retaking the House,
it is.
I think that's just ridiculous.
But she can do well with tax breaks for the rich too. That also works.
Well, look, Metascare will have better traction than the other, frankly. But look, Democrats are facing a huge uphill battle with the Senate, just given the sheer numbers of seats that are up. The problem is here you have both parties playing chicken with the debt ceiling, and the other problem is you've got a certain element of both parties that's sort of embracing this tactical Leninism that believes that the worse things get, the better they will get for them politically. The Democrats are replaying the Clinton-Gingrich script saying, see, if things go terrible, we can blame it on them, i.e. the government shutdown. And Republicans are saying that if the economy falls to hell, we can just blame it on Obama. It'll make Mitt Romney look better. That is terrible for the country. It is sick.
Margaret, if John Boehner and Eric Cantor give in on taxes and call it excises, call it special breaks, does the Tea Party revolt? Does the Tea Party turn on them?
Yeah, I think so. And I think they know it. I think it's a very precarious position they're in. They've done masterful work so far. And I think David's right. I think it's going to come down to the 11th hour, the 11th and a half hour, the 11th and 3/4 hour, and they're going to be in there rolling up their sleeves. But it's going to be several late nights before they reach an agreement.
And can you promise us in a really exciting August, David?
Yes, hot, sweaty, and exciting.
And all right, David Drucker of Roll Call, John Avlon of CNN and the Daily Beast, also reporting for Newsweek, and Margaret Hoover of the Fox News Channel. Gentlemen and lady, I thank you very much. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.